My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here. And today on Meet Cool People, I have a cool guy that I have got the opportunity to get to hang out with multiple times now. This is Brian Hilliard, and he is a popular speaker, coach, and author of 8 books who specializes in getting speakers booked for conference speaking gigs without taking a commission or breaking the bank in the process, because we all know we've been there before.
Yes.
And he started his business back in 2001, has done over 400 speaking gigs, and is cracking the code on how to find the right gigs without burning 3 to 4 hours a day in the process.
Right.
So, Brian, thanks so much for hanging out today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we've had some fun tech issues today, so we're recording this one over Zoom. It's all good. And we got introduced back by Michael Haynes, which was super cool, dude. And just a little bit of story with that is funny because he was episode 41 on the Meet Cool People show. So definitely everybody go back and listen to that one when you get a chance. And he was actually speaking at a gig in Houston and came up to Dallas afterwards and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Now, for anybody who hasn't listened to that, he's actually in Australia. So he happens to be in. We ended up, he's like, I'm going to be in town. You want to get together for lunch or something? We did. We had an awesome conversation. And like one of the biggest things he says, I've got this guy you need to meet. Well, I'm going to do an introduction between you guys. And that's how it all kicked off. And we've had like 6, 7 calls since then. We've worked together on a couple aspects. So thank you, Brian, for coming and hanging out today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is going to be fun.
Yes. So I kind of gave a little bit of background of who you are, what's going on and everything. But when you're helping your clients, what's the best way to describe what it is you're doing to help your clients?
Yeah. So, you mentioned the getting speaking gigs and things like that. That's the conference speaking accelerator. And what that does is we find conferences for speakers, submit applications on their behalf. That's pretty much the top level thing. And just a real quick story on how it started, because people have asked me. It started with a client who we were talking to, doing some work. And she's like, oh, this is great, Brian, but I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to be able to find these gigs. And I'm like, Lanita, her name is Lanita. And I'm a man of God, person of faith. And I said to her, I said, listen, everything happens for a reason. And I said, it's funny because I was thinking about this like the last couple months. And she's like, all right, tell me what you got. I told her, I said, we can find you these conferences. We'll try it for 2 or 3 months. I'm going to ask you for a little bit of money, but you can't be mad if it doesn't work because I'm already saying that I'm not sure. And she's like, oh, okay, I guess. And I tell people, because it's true, for 6 months, it didn't work. And she was asking me, I stopped charging her credit card. She's still calling me, telling me to charge her card. And at the end, I was getting to the point where I had to figure it out. Otherwise, I was going to have to return her some money. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And that was becoming problematic. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, all right, let me go out and do this. So we wound up figuring it out. And it's been really, really good. But to answer your question, it is finding these conferences for these people. We use AI, we use a virtual assistant, we use my own expertise, and doing it in a way like you mentioned earlier at the top. It's not about breaking the bank. It's about a customized process that works.
Right. And I love that you went through the journey, and obviously as an entrepreneur, we always go through these spots of I'm going to try this and hope it works, because we don't know yet. And I like the fact that you were very, upfront with the client saying, I don't know how it's going to work yet, but if you want, this is what we're looking at. And she was willing to trust you on that. And, said and done, you got our results, which is awesome. So what was it that got you into what started your speaking career, I guess is the right question.
Yeah. So my mom is a motivational speaker. She was doing that back when I was growing up. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. And she was doing it, and I just tell people, brass tacks, if you want to try something hard, we think this is hard. Oh, let's break through social media. Oh, let's do a podcast. Oh, let's try to become an influencer. Here's something that you want to try if you want to. Try being a Black woman in the United States of white America from 1978 to 1995, speaking on your own to corporations. Try that. Okay. You'll get your money's worth on that. I was there.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's no disrespect to anybody, but if you want to try something hard, try that.
Right.
And it was tough. It was tough, But what that allowed me to do, because I have a younger brother, his name is Aaron, both of us were able to see what she was able to do, to be successful in that regard. I remember we went on trips. So another quick story. I told you we were in Greenwich. And what happened is our main airport was LaGuardia. We would go out of LaGuardia, which is in New York, for people who
Okay.
might
Yeah.
not know. Okay. And LaGuardia, if you haven't been to LaGuardia, it's a zoo. It is like nothing you've seen before. We wound up going to LaGuardia. Here's the thing, as a kid, that's all I did. That's all I knew. So I thought all airports were like that.
Right.
We land in Kansas City. I never forget. We come out. It's like LAX now, where you come out, you take a look, maybe you get something to eat, you sit down. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I'm like, I don't understand this. Why is our airport like this, but these people are like that? And she's explaining to me, New York City, everything is different.
Right.
Almost everything is different in New York City. And so I remember that as kind of like a shining moment, and being able to do some of those things. But that got me down the road to doing it. And that got me doing it, like you said, in 2001, before a lot of people were doing the speaking and coaching thing. And a lot of people were like, my friends were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm starting a business. What are you doing? Like, we're working in corporate. Great.
Right.
I'm starting a business.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's how that got started.
Nice. That is very cool. And it's cool. And one of the things that I thought was awesome about you and I starting to talk was like, I've been a speaker since 2008, but I
Okay.
come from the speak to sell side.
Right.
And so, and you and I talked about this, where it's like,
Right.
it's a whole different game. Like, you've
Yeah.
got this very, very different arena.
Right.
And it was a piece that I had never even seen before. I'm like, okay, I need to talk and learn. That whole thing is, yeah, I've been doing this for a long, long time, but
Right.
there's a whole different section I've never even ventured into.
Yeah.
And so what's one of the things that you would say is different from, say, that arena versus what you're doing, which is like conference speaking and
Right.
associations and stuff like that?
I think probably just top line, it's mindset.
Okay.
I think for me, I'm speaking for myself, okay? Not for you, not for the millions of people who have done this or whatever, but I'm speaking for myself. I think the mindset is different for me.
Okay.
I remember when I was doing the speak to sell model, no disrespect, no disrespect. I was going down to Houston, Texas, okay? So not exactly your neck of the woods, but in the state, and going
Right down
down
the
there.
street somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. And I was going down there. I was driving 12 hours from an ATL one way. And I remember I had enough money to get there and to be there for about 5 days. And if I didn't sell at least 10 packages or five, it wasn't a huge number, but I needed to sell like 5 or 10 packages, maybe seven. Otherwise, I wasn't going to have the money to come back.
Right.
And now I had 5 engagements, so it's not like it was like whatever, but still, a half a dozen. No, you don't have the gas, don't have the this, you didn't have it. I didn't have it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would go down there. And one of the things I had to do in the speak to sell was I had to make a joke. I listened to Tom Antion. He says that people buy when they're laughing and they're happy. So what I had to do was I had to be laughing so I wasn't nervous. So I would tell jokes in my clothes. Okay.
Right.
And that got me across the line. The difference now when I'm doing more conference gigs, I still have a sales approach. I'll still make the point of, hey, listen, we've got some books in the back. I'll sign them. I'll even use them in my clothes. And if you're nice, I'll even take a picture with you. If you're not, I won't. So,
Yep.
Be nice. But it's one of those things where I think the mindset shift for me was being able to go out, do the conference, know you're getting some money, not necessarily be like OMG, okay? And it was a shift, man, Eli. I had to be like, it was, but I've been having a mindset shift in my business. I've that's a whole separate discussion, but it was a shift in
Right.
mindset because I had to go from this place of I was always adding value, but I had to go from this place of, hey, like I got $5,000 to go out and speak a couple months ago, which is great. That's not a ton of money, but it's my money, and
Right.
I got it.
Right.
And like that's a different approach than going to Houston and needing to sell, whatever it was, a half a dozen packages. It's mindset. That's definitely the answer.
Right. Well, and there's, I think, and this is one of the things that I saw is like, number one is that side of the speaking world has changed so much these last several years.
Right.
And I got burned out on it. but I've been doing it for years and I got
Yeah.
burned out on it. A lot of it had to do with the shift from, so normally what used to be the norm was you would speak on stage and you would split your profits with the host.
That's right.
Yeah. And that was, I totally get that part. I mean, it sucks because usually it's 50-50, so you only get half of what you get, but at least you walk in the door knowing that, you didn't pay anything to be there, but you get paid when you sell something. So it's like,
right.
This is good. And it was a win for everybody. And I know things shift and we don't have time to go into the whole deal, but what ended up switching was it went to the sponsorship model where as a speaker, you're paying to get on stage. And I'm like,
that's a joke.
Yeah. I'm like, no, this is not. And I did that a couple of times and would like literally fell on my face every time. And, it's like when you have those times where there's more speakers than there are attendees in the room.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you have a whole different process. And one thing that's nice about, dealing with like the associations and conferences and stuff like that is you are getting paid, and it may not be a crazy amount, but you get, you walk in the door knowing you got a check coming of some sort. So you're not losing coming out of the gate.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Like, so I got picked up to do a keynote general session later on this year. I'm getting travel and $250. Now, $250 in travel is probably not going to take me to the Cayman Islands. Okay. Like, we actually signed up for the Hilton Vacation Club. So we actually get some good deals, but that's probably still not going to get me to the Cayman Islands.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it gets me in front of 100 to 150 people who are in my constituency. It's an area that I want to be able to work on. It's a part that you're assisting me on with that newsletter and the idea of the recurring, and you were talking about with your own community Substack and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And I'm going to San Antonio, right? Like that's not gonna kill me. Okay. So the idea of being able to do some of these things versus sometimes I think that, and we were talking a little bit about this, I was sharing this earlier. When I was starting, I can't speak for you, I don't know because I wasn't there, but when I was starting, what I remember was people getting into business because that's what they wanted to do. For me, it was self-defense, but that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
What I think I hear more of now, and this is not putting anybody down, but it's something to consider if you're being a speaker, if you're listening and you're like, why am I not getting more gigs? What is your motivation? Is it to show everybody how smart you are? Is it to be this brand? Is it to be an influencer? Because those aren't any of the things that I remember being in my head at the time. What I remember was I had a message that I wanted to say, and here's a group that I could say it. And yes, I'm running a business. Yeah. So there might be some books and some coaching and things like that. But like, that's what I remember. So I think if someone's listening to here right now and like, hey, I want to get better. I want to be able to do more. I want to get more conference gigs. All right. First thing I would say is you got to shift the mindset. Second thing I would say is take a look at your why. Maybe we're going a little Simon Sinek here a little bit, but like, what is your why? And if it's anything of like what I mentioned, I'm going to suggest you put that in the parking lot and just start getting out there and playing your game and let the business flow to you.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. There's so many people like, and I'm a 100% advocate for speaking is like, for me, speaking is the number one way that I find clients. Right. However, the business is not for me to speak purely so I can sell stuff. You know, that's never been that way for me. What I actually fell into it from a standpoint of, I started teaching workshops back old school before I became a quote unquote speaker. I was doing workshops for people who were my web design clients that wanted to learn how to do basic updates themselves. Okay. And I started doing that, and I filled a room like immediately. Like we had 30 people per month in this workshop, and they loved it. And I was like, all right, I kind of like this teaching thing. This is kind of fun. And that's how it started for me. And I think that it's a really good mindset that a lot of people, when they're first starting out and getting into, I'm going to be a speaker, they come in from the ego standpoint, like you're saying, versus I want to share something cool with other people. And like for me, when it comes to speaking, my favorite part is when I can see somebody in the audience and I see the light bulb turn on. Right. Like again, that is the ultimate high for me, honestly. Right.
Right. That's exactly right. Because what happens is, excuse me, this is a life skill. My mom would call this a life lesson.
Mhm.
Here's the life lesson, in my opinion. If you want, and this is with anything, if you want somebody or something to come to that you want, how about you go out and attract it instead of trying to get it? How about
Right.
letting it be a part of the flow instead of something that you reach out to get? So if we're talking about speak, if I want to get out, and it doesn't make a difference how many conferences you want, 10, 15, 20 a year, three. I
Mhm.
actually signed on a guy who wants five. I had to tell him I think you could do seven. He's like, okay. So we put him down for seven. But like,
Right.
this is what you're looking for. Try to, our pastor said this, Andy Stanley, back when I was living in Atlanta, North Point Church. He says, he was talking about dating and
Mhm.
relationships. He says, if you're feeling stuck on the wife husband front, how about be the person you're looking for or is looking for? How
Right.
about you be who you want to be, excuse me, how about you be who you want to find, excuse me,
Right.
and
Yep.
then that will attract who you want to be with.
Yep.
Okay. Versus sometimes you see people, well, he's 6'1", but he's not 6'3". Oh, he has brown eyes, but he doesn't have, blue eyes. Oh, he's this, but he's that. Oh, you're stupid. How about you just take a look at what it is that you've got a non-perfect person trying to tell you what they want in a perfect person,
Right.
and I'm supposed to figure that out. How about as a speaker, we go out and we take a look at our topic, we take a look at our audience, and we take a look at what we would want from a would-be speaker. And how about we do that? And let's see what happens with the conferences.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree with that. That, I mean, that it really is the biggest thing. And I see, I get a lot of people who will come to me. Like even this week, I spoke. It was virtually. I did a webinar, and I spoke. And when I got the feedback from them, they have like 5 different categories that they did their little survey on and everything.
Right,
And I
right.
got 5 across the board
Okay,
on everything.
good.
And they were like, I can't believe this was so good. We had so much, you were so informative. You gave us actually actionable steps.
Right,
And I'm like, okay, isn't that what you wanted? I was
right,
kind of confused because
right, right, right.
that's what I thought that they wanted to begin with. And the
I
reality
thought that
is,
was the agreement. I thought that was the
yeah,
agreement,
yeah,
right?
but they're not used to it. And I think
Right,
as a speaker, that is one of the things that we really have to pay attention to, is like coming in from a place of truly giving value and actionable stuff.
right.
That's one of the things, like in the motivation world. I've never called myself a motivational speaker because I don't want to do that, because most of those guys, they get up there and they talk and they don't really say anything.
Right,
you know
right.
and so that's always been a big one for me, and I think that's been the things that's been great for my style. And I see that with so many other speakers that I'm like, okay, why don't you stop, pull back a little bit, and like you can talk less but give them more. And I think that makes a big difference. But it goes back to your point, is what are you really trying to accomplish? What are you really trying to get in front of them and share with them?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. So, a funny story, I was out on the coast and it was for a conference, right? And I was out there and I played my game. I went to the conference beforehand, like the day before. I'm looking around, I've got my dates and stuff like that, my times. Okay, I get up the next day, I'm ready to go. I go, it was a late game in the afternoon. I go to the gym. I'm getting ready to go get something to eat. It was in Seattle. I'm thinking about getting some fish and chips. I've actually put my order in. I get a call from the lady. The woman says, "Hey, are you still coming to speak?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." She's like, "Well, your thing starts in like 20 minutes." And I'm like, I remember this. Right. I'm still in my hotel. And I remember
Right.
thinking to myself, I actually said this. I forgot her woman's name. I said, no, 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 no. I have like 3 hours. She's like, no, it's like 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, let me go look at the conference, like the
Mm-hmm.
the agenda. I
Right.
still think I'm right, Eli. All right, so I'm going on the thing on
Yeah.
the agenda. Turns out that, a long story short, I had it on East Coast time when I made the thing on my Google Calendar. It
Oh,
switched, and I thought I still not exactly sure what I did, but the
yeah.
result was that the calendar was wrong once it
3 hours off.
shifted.
Yeah.
Right. And I was so mad. I told her I had to put down the phone. I said, I'm going to have to put down the phone for a second because I am so mad. She's like, oh, that's fine. Like nothing happened. She's like, oh, that's
Right.
fine. I dropped the phone. and then I go in, wound up getting over there. Long story short, I was mad for, it was a 10-minute drive for the hotel. I
Right.
was mad for 10 minutes there. She meets me at the steps like nothing's a problem. She's chatting me up during the thing. I'm still mad.
Right.
I'm outside. I'm outside. I had to apologize to the other lady who brought me in. I'm still mad. I go out into the thing while they're introducing me. I'm still pissed. The lady, so it's like 45 minutes now.
Right.
So one of the sponsors, guy and girl, come up to me. I guess they saw what had happened, and they saw I was still mad.
Right.
And they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, I guess I'm okay. I don't know. She's like, "Well, how about we've got some cookies here. Would you like some cookies?"
Cookies solve everything.
I said, "Yes, I would." She's like, "Okay, here you go. You want 2 packs?" I said, "No, one's fine." And then I was fine. But
Right.
like
That's funny.
it's things like that that happen to you sometimes.
Mhm.
Getting back to the things that you do, sometimes you just have to go with the flow as a speaker.
Yep.
But the point that I guess I'm trying to get to is, if I made that all about me, I was mad because I couldn't believe that the mistake happened
Right.
after my best intentions for going down there. I
Right.
wasn't mad because I looked bad, although I did. I was mad because I couldn't believe that it happened like that.
Right.
I was so mad, but it wound up working out.
As long as it works out in the end. And the reality is that things will happen. I mean,
Right.
I've had, another great story that I had a speaking gig. I was supposed to speak for 45 minutes. The speaker ahead of me
I've
is a
had that.
bigger name person, and
I've
they
had
just
that.
let that person keep talking and keep
I had that.
talking.
Yep.
And they ended up taking my 45-minute presentation, and I got 15 minutes.
I've had that.
I was so frustrated by it. And I'm
I've
like,
had that.
I don't care how big she is, cut her off. It's time for her to get off stage. That's just rude. And the interesting thing though about it is that we all run into that. And I'm these are great stories for both of us to share, because if anybody listening, if you're going into the speaking world, it's going to happen at some point. So
Oh
just know
yeah.
that. And for me, I was like, all right, I don't have a whole lot of time here, but I'm going to make the most of it. And I spoke for 15 minutes, and I took my presentation that was designed to be 45, and I rocked it in 15 minutes, and
Right.
people came flocking up to me
Right.
afterwards. And I'm like, you know what? It's all good.
Right.
And it's funny. It's funny that this comes up, because literally, I think it was just yesterday, I wrote an
Mm.
article about this virtual event that I just did. We hadn't talked about the time frame, and it just never came up in conversation. So
Sure.
Monday I messaged her, and I'm speaking on Wednesday, and I messaged her and I'm like, by the way, I realized we never talked about this. How much time do I have? Now I'm used to kind of the average is between about
Or
45 minutes these days.
yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you got 70. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh. And the funny thing about it is, I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. I gotta go back and relook at my slide deck, because I don't
Right.
normally use slides, but I will more on virtual stuff.
Yeah, yeah, you have to.
And
You have
yeah,
to.
and I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I need to add back in there. And I looked in there, and I realized there really isn't anything. All I need to do is just expand on what I have.
Right.
And it's like, this article that I wrote was purely about the fact that was a skill that I learned early on, is you plan on, you design your slides or your presentation for 90 minutes, knowing that you need a 90-minute version, a 60-minute version, a
Right.
45-minute version, 30-minute,
Right.
25, and 10 maybe.
Right. Right.
And so I realized, okay, that's probably one of the best speaking skills I ever learned, because of the
Right.
fact that I now have over double the amount of time I thought I was going to, basically.
Mm, mm.
And I look at my slides, I'm like, oh, I'm good.
Right.
And it went off,
Right.
awesome. They loved it. I love this stuff. Awesome. So, for people that are getting into the conference side of speaking, or they're
Okay.
looking at that,
Hmm.
what are, compared to other versions of speaking? So there's, we have, like we talked about, speak to sell. We also talked about
Yep.
lead gen speaking, which a lot of
Yep.
times is speaking for like local chambers
Yep.
and Rotary
Yep.
clubs and stuff like that. What
Right.
is one of the biggest differences in how you approach speaking for a conference than these other types?
Yeah. So here's an interesting. I'll answer that in the form of a story, if you don't mind. I was at a conference. I was actually the one in Rochester, Minnesota, and it was a situation where I was there, and I was doing my pregame. I usually like listen to some music. I saw LeBron James do it, so I started doing it. And I'm listening to some music and I'm, doing some of the different things, right? Okay. So then I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to stop, right? And then I was like, wait, no, I'm just going to take it down. Now, so a little bit of, for those of you, this is going to be a little off color humor. So just bear with us, okay? What I realized, I was like, I had on my headphones, all right? I had my headphones and I had to go down into the elevator. And I'm going to go down there and I'm like, I should take them off. And I'm like, no. And here's the thing. So for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm 6 feet, 195, 198. Okay. And here's Eli's hand. This is exactly what I thought of. I was like, wait, no one's going to stop a 6-foot black man, 198 pounds with headphones on in the elevator. No one's going to say one thing. They're just going to let it go. So I'm like, so I went in. I mean, and the music was blaring. Like you could hear it out the thing, right? I had on my jacket. Music's blaring. I'm walking down the hall. The music is blaring. Okay. Not one person stopped me. I go, I see the woman, I take the thing off. It's on my thing. You can still hear it. Shaking hands with them. Doing all this stuff. She's like, okay, you'll be down in this hall. I said, great. Is there anything you need from me? She's like, no. And I said, okay, I'll talk with you later. She's like, fine. I put it back on. I'm walking down the thing. So it's one of those things where I think the biggest thing in terms of setup is I think there's a pregame expectation, okay, of what you need to be able to do. And I think you need to approach it. It's kind of like answering the question of what's the difference between and it's not disrespecting the after hours chamber local event. So if that's what people are doing, I'm not trying to disrespect that, but conference speaking is not that. Okay. It's an audience that is paid to be there. It's an audience that has taken time out of their busy, probably week, because it's usually 3 days if you include travel to be there. It's also an audience that has a higher constituency concentration than maybe you're used to. Okay. So if you're going to the CPA Society or the Nonprofit Society or the Association of XYZ Society, engineers, website developers, whatever it is, it's a higher concentrated constituency than you're probably used to. Okay. And you want to be able to take all of that into account. So the biggest thing for me would be, all right, number one, you talked about not having slides. I'm a non-slide man myself. The problem is, and I'm not talking at you, but like the problem is when you're at a conference, they're expecting you to have slides. Like that's just the problem. So I had to do it. Okay. Then the second, so you have to have slides even though you don't normally do. Second difference is that you have to go a little easy on the gas in terms of, the actual offer. So I call it the one breath offer, where you're like, hey, listen, we have this, and this, and you take a breath. And if you want to do this, you can. Okay. Third thing is you got to have a plan. That goes back to my pregame. Okay. You have to have a plan and you got to look at it like, and I tell people this, conferences, if this is the major leagues. I'm not saying I'm Brian Tracy because I'm not, but and I'm not saying I'm at the Comic-Con conference over at the at the MetLife Center in downtown New Jersey. This is like, but it is not the chamber after hours. And I think the biggest thing that I would say, just wrapping this answer up, is that as speakers, if you're doing the local thing, that's fine. You're usually going because they're networking and they happen to see you speak. Conferences, somebody came to travel and you were on the list. Okay. And they're expecting a major league, pitching thing. They're not, if you want Birmingham Barons against the Durham Bulls, that's fine. You can get a $10 ticket, AA ball, and you can get probably a hot dog special. But if you're at Yankee Stadium or you're at, any of these bigger ballparks, you better be ready to throw major league pitches, good points, good action items, engagement. You better be throwing high 90s pitches, mid 90s, okay? Because otherwise you're not going to get anybody out and you won't get invited back. So I think if you put all of that in there, that would be a longer answer, and I apologize for how to get there.
No, it was great. That was exactly what I was hoping for, because that is one of the things that it is a very different game than a lot of people are used to. And so for me, I love it because you and I have been talking about it, and I'm like, oh, good. A lot of stuff you're telling me is stuff that I actually already do, which makes me happy because obviously I don't want to have to work a whole lot harder.
Right, right,
you know?
right, 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 right,
But
right.
it's great because all the stuff you're talking is like, okay, this is awesome. This resonates because this is the stuff that I do.
Right.
And for me that was great, but there's so many people that don't, and they don't see the potential with it. So I love that. As we're starting to wrap up here, because
Yeah.
we are running out of time, we got a couple of things here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up? Anything
Yeah,
that we did?
if somebody wants to be able to, can I talk to them how they connect with me, or do you want something else?
Anything before that? We're not there
Okay,
yet.
before that? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah, I would say a parting shot before that. Parting shot, if you don't mind, would be the idea that as a speaker, here's the thing. We have a degree of expertise, all right? And that means that it is a mutually beneficial transaction. We go, we speak, they listen, they do. All right. And when I say they, I'm talking about the audience and the would be conference planner. I think a lot of times for people who are trying to get conference speaking gigs and don't either feel a little dismayed, frustrated, not sure, confused, whatever, not sure how to go about doing
right.
that. I understand that. Like I was that. I totally get that. I think the issue though is that when you find, and this is the thing about winning, it's a lot more fun. When you find that, and here's the point I make a lot, there is somebody out there right now with a similar set of experience, expertise, and skill set who's getting paid or at a conference. And I ask to you, and I ask, well, why shouldn't that be you? Okay. And when you get organized and when you get back to that mindset point, and the idea that, listen, I'm a speaker, that's good. And I have this thing. I don't necessarily need to be, speaking over at the Meadowlands, but I can get this nice little deal and I can get more from that. And I can get a little bit of this. And yes, maybe you can go get some fish and chips when you're done. Okay. If that's what you want to do. I was in Ireland. I ate fish and chips 3 out of 6 meals, and that's fine. But like you can do some of those things.
Right.
Okay. And make sure that you are doing that and being intentional about it, whether that's with me or somebody else.
Awesome. I love it. Very cool. Okay, so with that said, that was awesome. By the way, I just love it. Like that, 2 last questions that I ask everybody. Now, the last
Gotcha.
one's the easy one. That's how do people get a hold of you?
Okay.
But before that, this is the Meet Cool People show. So I always like to ask my guests, what do the words meet cool people mean to you?
I kind of think of like a West Coast. You talked about Portland when we were talking about that. I think of like a West Coast cool kids, not in the high school bad way. It's one of those things where you know what it's like. Actually, now I'm talking it through. It's a little bit like John Maxwell talks about becoming a person of influence. I think a cool person is a person of influence. I think meeting cool people would be meeting people who are potential people of influence. And I think that when you're doing that and you're I also think there's a level of success. And I can be successful and be a jerk, or I can be successful and I can be a cool person.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a degree of, in my mind, person of influence, level of success, degree of empathy, and then last but not least, a congeniality about the person. One of the things that people have been saying a lot about me lately, which is interesting, is they say it's always pleasant when you're around. You have a pleasant demeanor, which I've been taking as a compliment. And I think it's true. Like I didn't come up with this; they said it. I just
Right.
noticed it.
I would agree
And
with it. I would agree with that.
yeah, thank you. They say I have a real pleasant demeanor, and that it's just pleasant to be around. And I'm like, that's interesting. I would throw that into the cool people. Cool people, in my mind, you asked me, cool people are looking to help others move forward while moving forward themselves and doing so in a pleasant way. That's me.
Awesome. Well said. I love it. Very, very cool. All right. So, what is the easiest way for people to get a hold of you? Because I know that people are going to hear this and want to connect with you and
Yeah,
see more awesome stuff.
that is no problem. So a couple of ways. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Brian Hilliard. That's BrianHilliard. Door number one. Door number two is we have our actual presentation, our coaching site. That would be morepaidspeakinggigs.com. We also have, and this is door number three, we have a speakers mastermind. If anybody wants to attend that as my guest, you can message me or email me or find me on LinkedIn. We have a speakers mastermind. It's a great way, small group of folks. And we meet on the second Wednesday of the month. It's a 90-minute meeting, so we could do that. That's 3 ways for people to connect:
Awesome.
email, LinkedIn, website. It's reasonable.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you, like it always is, because every conversation we have is always good.
Thank you.
And with that said, thank you so much. Everybody else, get out there. Have an amazing, amazing week. If there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out and let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. Now, if you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rock star.